It's been nearly a quarter century since the attacks on September 11th, but for one man, the memory is as vivid as ever. Tamara Starr joins us again in the studio now with more on how one survivor has made it his mission to travel the world, sharing his story, all without asking for a single dollar. Tamara.
He's a 9/11 survivor, a first responder, and a grieving brother. Dr. Gordon Hugh is the only person known to be all three. But for more than 23 years after this tragic day, he's now dedicating his life to something else, making sure future generations never forget. And he's doing it all for free. I had the chance to sit down with Dr. Hugh and hear his powerful story firsthand. Gordon Hugh doesn't just tell his story, he lives it every day. A 9/11 survivor, orthopedic surgeon, and first responder, Hugh rushed to Beekman Hospital the morning of the attacks, helping treat victims in a conference room turned trauma bay.
Okay, I got to get to the nearest hospital. I got to help.
Later that evening, tragedy struck home again. Hugh learned that his sister Susan, just 43 years old, had died in the World Trade Center.
We were considered fortunate because we found out what happened to our loved one that same day. Of the 2,749 who died, most of them, we had no idea what happened to them until about 2 weeks later.
That combination of experiences, survivor, rescuer, and relative of a victim, makes him the only known triple. And it's that perspective that fuels his mission today, to speak to as many young people as possible, for no fee, so that they'll never forget. Students like Matthew Cohen, a freshman at Siena College, says Hugh's talk opened their eyes.
You know, it's the history of it, and it's an unimaginable event to me right now.
Cohen says what struck him most was how often the real scope of the tragedy is overlooked.
Mostly people just think about the towers and not what happened outside the towers. It's just the plane hit, and then that was the focus. But there was loss of life all around. There was an area of effect, he said.
Hugh says what's written in textbooks doesn't even come close.
One paragraph to describe all three areas, that's not going to cut it. So that's why I'm here. That's why I want to do this. So that's why I want to speak.
And he continues to speak despite suffering from cancer caused by the dust at Ground Zero. He's traveled the world to share photos, stories, and the harsh reality of what happened that day and what's still happening.
We lost close to 3,000 people. So when you stand in that room, as sobering as that sight is, with hundreds of pictures surrounding you, you realize that is only a tiny, tiny percentage of the amount of people we had actually lost that day, that morning, actually.
And for young people like Cohen, Hugh's message is sticking.
I hope that, education can continue to strive to be more open, and to really talk about the highs of our country, but also what are the lows, what were some of the tragedies that maybe kind of were swept under the rug in some cases, what were the details that really need to come to light in order to give events meaning.
Even as programs for survivors face cuts and institutions like the 9/11 Tribute Museum close their doors, Hugh is still determined to keep his story alive.
My only niche in this world is to continue to speak and to teach others, especially the younger generations who don't even know what 9/11 is, except for that one paragraph in the American history book.
Dr. Gordon Hugh says he'll speak anywhere, whether it's a classroom, community hall, or halfway across the globe, just to make sure no one forgets what happened on September 11th. For more on this story and to learn how you can connect with Dr. Hugh, you can check out our website later this morning at WNYT.com.